The great hall of the alien court shimmered with light from crystal towers. Strange music echoed through the air, and rows of nobles whispered in low voices. But all eyes were fixed on one figure at the center, the princess. She was tall, graceful, wrapped in silver robes that glittered like starlight, and on her face, always, a shining silver mask. No one in living memory had seen what lay beneath it. Legends followed her mask like shadows. Some said her beauty was too powerful and could kill with a glance. Others whispered she was cursed, her face burned by fire, her skin marked with shame. The nobles of her people never spoke of it openly. But every guest who visited the court carried the same question in their hearts. Why did the princess hide her face? On that day, humans had come to speak with the alien rulers. An uneasy alliance had brought them across the stars, and among them was Captain Daniel, a soldier who had seen too many battles and carried himself with calm strength. He had no interest in court gossip or alien myths. His only task was to keep peace. Yet when he looked at the masked princess, something in her presence unsettled him. The meeting began with long speeches. The alien council argued over borders, trade, and old grudges. Voices rose and fell like waves, but Daniel barely heard them. His attention kept drifting back to her. She sat in silence, her masked face lowered, her hands resting on the throne. She looked like a statue carved from silver. But every now and then he noticed her fingers tremble, a small, human-like sign of fear. Why was she afraid? Daniel wondered. She was the daughter of the most powerful ruler in this system. Armies and fleets obeyed her family's word, yet she sat there as if chained by her own silence. At one moment, the hall grew tense. An alien noble accused humans of dishonor, shouting that they should be cast out. The council erupted, and in the noise, the princess rose from her seat, her robe flowing like water. She raised her hand for silence, and for an instant, her mask shifted. It was not much, only a tilt of silver catching the light, but Daniel saw the edge of her eyes. They were not cursed eyes, nor monstrous. They were wide, luminous, filled with fear, but also something else, longing. Their gazes locked for less than a heartbeat, yet Daniel felt as if time had stopped. He saw not a curse, but a soul trapped in chains. The nobles gasped. Many turned away. Some covered their faces as if danger had burst into the room. They shouted about omens, about death, about forbidden things. But the princess did not scream. She did not collapse in horror. Instead, her eyes widened, and for the first time, her voice cut through the chamber, soft, trembling, but clear. "Daniel," she whispered. The human froze. His name on her lips struck him harder than any weapon. How could she know him? They had never met. No record showed she had ever spoken with humans before, yet she had spoken his name like she had carried it in her heart. The council thundered with outrage. Guards moved forward. Accusations flew. The moment was dangerous, but Daniel could not look away. He stood frozen, his hand on his weapon, his mind racing. The princess lowered her hand. Silence returned slowly, her mask again covering all but the faint glow of her eyes. But Daniel knew what he had seen, the trembling, the fear, and the strange, impossible knowledge of his name. Something hidden lay behind that mask, something deeper than curses or scars, and Daniel felt a truth rising in him, the truth that the legends were lies, and the princess was more prisoner than queen. He did not know why she had chosen him, why her voice had found his name, but at that moment he understood one thing. This was no ordinary mission. This was not about trade or politics. This was about a secret only he had been allowed to glimpse. And now, the fate of two worlds rested on what he would choose to do next. The chamber of the alien court did not calm easily. After the princess spoke Daniel's name, the entire hall broke into a storm of whispers, fear, and anger. Nobles hissed words of curse. Priests raised their hands in warning. Guards moved their weapons as if danger had already entered the room. But Daniel only stood there, frozen. He felt every gaze on him, human and alien alike. Some saw him as guilty, others as cursed, yet none of them mattered in that moment. Only the princess. She had looked directly at him, spoken his name, and in her voice there was no curse, only trembling hope. Later that night, Daniel returned to the human quarters within the alien palace. His men questioned him. "Why did she say your name? Captain, what did it mean?" But he had no answer. He only replayed the memory again and again, the flash of her eyes, the silver mask slipping, the way her voice had carried a fragile truth through the storm. Sleep did not come, and when the night grew heavy, a shadow slipped into his chamber. Daniel reached for his weapon, but the figure raised her hands quickly, hidden under the hood of a dark cloak. It was her, the princess. His first instinct was disbelief. The guarded princess, the one never allowed to walk alone, had come to him in secret. Her silver mask still hid her face, but her eyes glowed in the dim light. "Do not fear me, human," she said, her voice shaking. "I am not what they claim. I am not cursed. I am not a monster. I am only a prisoner behind this mask." Daniel lowered his weapon slowly. His soldier's instinct told him this was dangerous, yet something in her tone felt desperate, honest. She stepped closer, and the silver mask gleamed faintly. "They tell stories so no one asks questions. They say I bring death so no one sees my truth. But you, Daniel, you looked at me without fear, and for the first time, I felt seen." He tried to steady his voice. "Why me? Why speak my name?" Her hands trembled. She reached to touch the mask as if to remove it, but stopped. "Because I dreamed of you long before today. I do not know why, but your face has been in my mind, in my sleep, since the war ended. It is as if fate tied us together." Daniel felt a chill run through him. He was a man of war, of orders and battles, not of dreams and destiny. Yet her words pressed against his heart like a secret he could not ignore. The princess turned suddenly. The sound of armored footsteps echoed in the hall outside. Her guards searched for her. Her time was short. She leaned close, her voice a whisper of fire and fear. "Meet me tomorrow, when the moonlight falls on the garden of crystal trees. I will show you why I hide. I will show you my truth." Before he could reply, she slipped back into the shadows. The door opened, and she was gone, leaving Daniel in silence, his chest heavy with questions. When dawn came, the court continued as if nothing had happened. The council argued, the nobles shouted, but Daniel could not focus. His thoughts remained on the hidden meeting, on the forbidden words whispered in the night. Why him? Why did she dream of him? Why did she trust a human more than her own people? As the day moved slowly, tension filled the palace. The alien priests warned of omens. The nobles spoke of rebellion. Some demanded the human delegation be expelled before disaster struck. But Daniel noticed the princess remained silent, her mask firmly in place, her eyes hidden, yet every time the silver light touched her, he remembered the night before. That evening, as the alien moons rose high and their light poured into the crystal gardens, Daniel walked alone. The towers glowed like frozen lightning, and in the center stood the princess, waiting. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the soft hum of alien trees. Daniel's heart beat faster with each step. He knew this was forbidden. He knew if anyone saw them, war might break out, yet he could not turn back. She looked at him, her voice gentle, trembling, but filled with strength. "Tonight, I will show you what no other has seen. Tonight, you will know why I wear the mask. But once you see, you can never return to the life you knew." Daniel stopped a breath away from her, the silver mask gleaming between them. His soldier's heart warned him of danger, but his human soul whispered of truth. And as the moonlight touched her face, the princess reached slowly toward her mask, her hands shaking, her eyes locked on his. "Will you still stand with me?" she asked, "even when the mask is gone?" The garden of crystal trees shimmered under the pale alien moon. The trunks glowed faintly, their branches spreading light like frozen fire. Daniel stood among them, his soldier's boots crunching on the glassy soil. The air felt heavy, not from weapons or war, but from the weight of something hidden. The princess stood a few steps away, her silver mask reflecting the strange light. She raised a trembling hand. For a long moment, she did not move, as if every muscle in her body fought against the choice. Finally, with slow grace, she unhooked the mask. Daniel's breath caught, but before she revealed her face, she lowered the mask into her hands, holding it tight against her chest. Her eyes lifted to his, glowing with both fear and hope. "My people believe beauty is power," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They believe scars mean weakness, shame, something unworthy of rule. When the war came, I fought beside them. I was struck. Fire touched me. The scars remained. They said no one could ever look at me again. They said I was cursed. So they made me wear the mask. They said the people would not follow me if they saw my truth. Daniel listened in silence, his chest heavy with her words. The air between them seemed to burn. She turned her face slightly, letting the edge of the moonlight touch her skin. For the first time, he saw a glimpse of her scars, lines across her cheek, marks of survival, not of shame. She trembled as if expecting him to recoil. But Daniel did not move. He kept his eyes steady, his voice calm. "You are not cursed," he said. "You are a warrior who lived. Your scars prove it." Her breath broke. A sound close to a sob escaped her lips. Her hands shook so much she almost dropped the mask. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. "Not even my father. Not even my people." Daniel stepped closer, careful not to frighten her. "I am human," he said. "We know scars. We know what they mean. They mean you fought, and you survived." Her eyes widened, shimmering with tears. For a moment, she looked less like a princess and more like a woman carrying years of hidden pain. "I asked you here because I had to know," she said softly. "I had to know if anyone could see me as I am, not as a mask, not as a curse, but as a person." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He was a soldier, trained to resist fear, but not this, not the quiet pain in her voice. She lowered her gaze, her words falling heavy. "But there is more. Daniel, the council hides something. They tell the people I am cursed, but the truth is worse. If I bond with someone of my own kind, they believe the curse will spread. They fear my bloodline is broken. They fear my face means the end of their power. So they wait for me to remain silent, hidden forever." Daniel frowned. "And if you bond with a human?" Her eyes rose to his again, her voice trembling. "Then their lies fall apart. If you choose me, you break their fear, you break their control, but you also risk their wrath. They will not forgive you. They may start war. They may kill you." The silence that followed pressed on Daniel's chest like iron. He was no stranger to war, to death, to risk. But this was different. This was not about orders. This was about choice. She stepped closer, her voice a whisper of fire. "I dreamed of you, Daniel. I do not know why, but I believe fate brought you here. I ask you now, will you bond with me, even if my face is broken, even if my people turn against us?" Daniel felt the ground beneath him vanish. Every soldier's instinct screamed to walk away, to stay loyal to his mission. But his heart, his human heart, told him the truth was standing right before him, trembling, scarred, yet stronger than anyone he had ever met. The princess lowered her head, her silver mask still clutched in her hands, waiting for his answer. Daniel took a step closer, his voice low but firm. "I will not turn away." Her breath caught. Her hands shook. The mask nearly slipped from her grip, but for the first time, he saw her lips curve into the faintest, most fragile smile. In that moment, under the alien moons, the mask was no longer a prison. It was only a symbol of lies, and Daniel knew he had taken the first step into a bond that could change both their worlds. The next day dawned with fire across the alien skies. Twin suns painted the towers of the palace in red and gold. But inside the council chamber, there was no warmth, only cold voices and sharp words. The alien nobles gathered, their robes shimmering, their eyes fixed on Daniel. They whispered of curses, of forbidden things, of danger that had entered their halls. The priests stood tall, warning that the human had broken sacred law. Some even demanded his execution. Daniel remained silent, his soldier's posture straight, his eyes calm, but inside his heart pounded. He had stood against enemies before, but never against an entire world of rulers, and this time the fate of peace itself trembled with every word spoken. The princess entered the chamber, her mask firmly back in place, her steps steady, yet Daniel could see the faint tremor in her hands. She said nothing, her silence heavier than all the shouts that filled the air. An elder noble struck his staff on the ground. The sound echoed like thunder. "This human has stolen the gaze of our princess," he cried. "He has broken the oldest law. He has seen what none should see. If we allow this, then our power is shattered." Voices rose, fists slammed, weapons rattled, and still the princess did not speak. Her silence was its own kind of scream. Daniel's fellow officers, seated at the far side, leaned toward him. One whispered harshly, "Captain, this is too dangerous. Refuse her. Step back. Save the mission. Save yourself." Another added, "We came for peace, not for bonding with aliens. If you choose her, Earth may not forgive you either." The weight pressed on him from all sides. Duty to his people, the pull of politics, the threat of war. But then his mind returned to the garden, to the trembling voice of the princess, to her whispered question, "Will you still stand with me even when the mask is gone?" The elder raised his staff again. "Speak, human, will you deny the bond, or will you condemn yourself before us all?" Daniel rose slowly, his boots heavy against the crystal floor. The entire chamber fell silent, hundreds of eyes burning into him. Even the princess lifted her masked face slightly, as if holding her breath. Daniel looked at the nobles, at the priests, at the guards waiting with weapons ready, and finally at her, the silver mask hiding scars, hiding pain, but not able to hide the truth he had seen in her eyes. His voice cut through the silence, steady, unbroken. "I will bond." Gasps erupted like fire. Nobles staggered back. Priests shouted warnings. The chamber shook with outrage. But Daniel did not waver. He spoke louder, his words ringing like steel. "Mask or no mask. Curse or no curse. She is not broken. She is more than your fear, and I choose her." The princess froze, her hands trembling. Her masked face tilted slightly, as if the words struck her deeper than any blade. For a heartbeat, she looked small, fragile. Then slowly she straightened, the faintest glow of strength returning to her form. The council descended into chaos. Some shouted for war, some demanded blood, others whispered of prophecy. The guards stepped forward, but the princess raised her hand, and for the first time in many years, she spoke loudly before them all. "This human has chosen what none of you dared," she declared, her voice trembling but growing stronger. "He has looked at me without fear. He has seen me, and he has not turned away. If that is weakness, then weakness is stronger than all your lies." Her words cracked like lightning across the chamber. Some fell silent in awe. Others raged even louder, but the shift had begun. Daniel stood at her side, his heart pounding, knowing he had crossed a line no human had ever crossed, knowing the path ahead was full of danger, yet feeling no regret. The princess lowered her hand, her voice softer now, meant only for him. "You have chosen, Daniel, and because of that, nothing will ever be the same again." And as the council roared in fury, and the palace trembled with anger, Daniel realized the truth. He had made a choice not only for himself, not only for her, but for two worlds now tied together by a bond no one could unmake. The council chamber did not rest after Daniel's words. The walls echoed with shouts of betrayal and curses. Nobles stamped their feet. Priests raised their staffs to the ceiling, calling on old laws and older gods. But none of it mattered to Daniel. His gaze never left the princess. She stood still, her silver mask hiding her face. Yet her hands trembled. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breath. She had heard his choice, his defiance, and though the storm raged around them, she seemed lost in a silence only the two of them could hear. Guards stepped forward, weapons drawn. One shouted, "Seize him!" But the princess raised her hand sharply. The entire chamber froze. For years her silence had been her chain, yet now, her voice carried strength. "No one will touch him," she said, her tone shaking but firm. "He has chosen when none of you dared. He has spoken when all of you stayed silent. If you call that weakness, then I say your strength is hollow." Gasps swept through the chamber. The nobles recoiled. The priests muttered in fear. Never before had she spoken against them so openly. The elder noble hissed, "You speak madness. Princess, show your face then. Let us see the truth you hide. Prove to us your curse is nothing but a lie." The words struck the chamber like a blade. Silence followed. Even the guards lowered their weapons. Every eye turned to her, waiting, fearing, hoping. Her hands rose slowly, clutching the mask. For years it had been her prison, her protection, her shame. Now she held it, as if it weighed 1,000 worlds. She turned her gaze to Daniel, his eyes steady, his presence like a shield, and in that moment, she found the courage to move. With a single breath, she lifted the mask away. The chamber erupted with gasps. Some cried out. Some turned their heads. Others stared in shock. Her face was revealed, half marked with scars, lines of fire across her cheek and jaw. Yet in those scars was strength. In her eyes was light. Not death, not curse, but survival. Daniel stepped forward, closing the space between them. The council roared, but he did not care. His hand rose gently. He touched her scarred cheek with the softest of gestures, and his voice carried through the silence. "You are not broken," he said. "You are more than all their fear." The princess's breath shook. Her eyes filled with tears. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, and in every vision she saw horror, rejection, disgust. But now, in his gaze, she saw none of that. She saw only truth. Her lips parted, a faint smile, fragile yet radiant. "Daniel," she whispered, "you see me." The chamber divided in chaos. Some nobles screamed of curses. Priests tried to cover their eyes. Guards stood frozen, unsure of which order to follow. But many among the common watchers stared not in fear, but in awe. The mask was gone, and the legend was broken. The elder slammed his staff, shouting, "This is blasphemy. This is the end of our order." But his voice no longer commanded the same weight. The sight of the princess unveiled had shattered more than her mask. It had shattered the lies that held them all. Daniel kept his hand on her cheek, steady, unshaken. "Let them rage," he said softly to her. "Their power was built on fear. Now they will have to face the truth." Her eyes closed for a moment, her tears falling free, but when she opened them again, there was fire within, a strength long buried, now awakened. She stood taller, mask in hand, scars revealed, no longer a prisoner of their myths. "This is my face," she declared to the hall, her voice strong. "And if you call it weakness, then I will lead you with weakness. If you call it shame, then I will rule you with shame. But know this, I will never hide again." The chamber trembled with her words. The nobles staggered, the priests muttered, and Daniel felt the air shift. Something powerful had begun. The mask, once a symbol of curse, now hung loose in her grip, a broken chain, a relic of lies. And as Daniel stood beside her, the storm of change rose higher. The truth was out, the bond had begun, and the fate of two worlds now bent toward a path none of them could escape. The chamber of the council shook like a storm after the princess's mask fell away. Half the nobles screamed in rage, half sat in stunned silence. The priests pressed their staffs against the ground, chanting prayers of warning, yet none of them could deny what they had seen. The curse was a lie, the mask was a cage. Daniel stood beside her, his hand still on her shoulder, his presence a shield against the chaos. He could feel the weight of 100 eyes on him, some filled with fury, others with fear, but a few, just a few, looked with wonder. The elder noble's voice thundered, "This cannot be allowed. If she rules uncovered, our people will fall into ruin. If she bonds with a human, our bloodline ends. Strike them down now before the curse spreads." Guards shifted, weapons trembling in their hands. They waited for orders, but none dared to move first. The princess raised her head, her scars glowing under the light of the crystal towers, her eyes burning with new strength. "No," she said, her voice steady. "The curse is yours, not mine. Your lies are the chains that bind this court. Today they are broken." Her words cracked like lightning. The chamber divided even deeper. Some nobles shouted their loyalty to her. Others called for her exile. The split widened until the very walls seemed to vibrate with the sound. Daniel's human officers leaned close to him, their voices urgent. "Captain, this is madness. If we stay, war will consume us. We must withdraw before it begins." But Daniel shook his head, his voice low. "Leaving now would mean abandoning her. And if we abandon her, we abandon truth." The elder noble slammed his staff once more. "Guards, take them," he roared. But before the soldiers could move, others stepped forward, younger warriors, their voices loud. "No, she is our princess. We will not strike her down." The chamber froze. The rebellion had begun. Blades lifted, lines drawn. Half the guards moved toward Daniel and the princess. Half stood against them. The council erupted into violence. The sound of steel against steel echoed through the halls. the air filled with sparks of energy weapons. Daniel drew his sidearm, his instincts of war returning in a heartbeat. He placed himself in front of the princess, blocking a strike from a soldier's blade. His weapon flashed. The attacker fell back. The princess gasped, but he did not falter. "This is not your war alone," Daniel told her quickly, his voice steady even in the storm. "This is ours now." The princess gripped the broken mask in her hand like a weapon, raising it high. Her voice rose above the clash. "Look at me, all of you. This is my face. These are my scars. If you fear them, then you are already defeated. If you accept them, then you will rise with me." Her words cut through the noise. For a moment, the fighting slowed. Her people stared at her, and some lowered their weapons. The lie of centuries crumbled before their eyes. But the elder's rage only grew, his face twisted, his voice a snarl. "Then you choose ruin. You choose death. Your bond with a human will bring nothing but war." Daniel aimed his weapon, his voice like steel. "If war comes, I will fight, but not for conquest, not for power. I will fight for her, for the truth she carries." The princess turned to him, her eyes wide, her voice a whisper beneath the chaos. "They will never forgive us, Daniel. Even if some stand with me, others will hunt us until the end." Daniel met her gaze, his tone unshaken. "Then let them come, because we will face them together." The chamber filled once more with shouts, blades, and fire. But beneath it all, a new current flowed. Some aliens stood beside their princess. Others raised their weapons against her. The council was no longer whole. The empire itself trembled on the edge of war. As the battle raged, Daniel knew the truth. The choice had been made. There was no going back. Their bond had already changed the course of two civilizations, and now they stood at the crossroads. Unity or destruction, love or blood, war or peace. And in the center of it all stood one scarred princess and one stubborn human, refusing to let go. The council chamber burned with chaos. Smoke rose from shattered pillars. Guards clashed with guards. Nobles screamed. Priests wailed. But in the center of it all, Daniel and the princess stood side by side, their bond defying every voice that tried to tear them apart. The elder noble pushed through the storm, his staff glowing with ancient power, his eyes filled with hate. "You shame our people," he roared. "You bring ruin by standing with a human. Your scars are weakness. Your bond is death." He lifted his staff high. Energy crackled at the tip, ready to strike. But before he could release it, Daniel stepped forward, his weapon drawn, his voice sharp as steel. "If you harm her, you will answer to me." The elder sneered. "One human cannot stand against an empire." Daniel's gaze did not waver. "Then watch me." The elder thrust his staff down. A blast of light shot toward the princess. But Daniel moved, his body shielding hers. The energy struck him, his armor scorched, pain surged through him, yet he did not fall. He gritted his teeth and stood tall, his arms spreading wide to protect her. Gasps filled the chamber. The sight of a human standing against power itself, refusing to bow, refusing to die. The princess's cry cut through the storm. "Enough," she screamed, her voice trembling with fire. "This ends now." She tore the broken mask from her hand and hurled it to the floor. The silver shattered into pieces, echoing like thunder, her face revealed to all, her scars glowing in the firelight, her eyes blazing. "This is who I am," she declared, her voice carrying to every corner. "I am not cursed. I am not broken. I am your princess, and I will lead you with truth, not lies, and I will bond with the human who chose me when none of you dared." The hall froze. Even the warriors paused mid-strike. The people stared at her, their fear cracking into awe. Some dropped to their knees, not in terror, but in respect. Daniel, still standing despite the pain, placed his hand gently on her shoulder, his voice low but strong. "You are not alone." The elder noble staggered back, his staff shaking. The power within him faltered. The weight of the moment crushed his defiance. His voice broke into rage. "You will destroy us all." The princess stepped forward, her words sharp as a blade. "No, I will save us, because fear no longer rules this chamber, only truth does." The crowd shifted, voices rose, but this time not in curses. Many shouted her name. Others cried for unity. The tide had turned. The princess turned to Daniel, her hand reaching for his. Before them all, I choose you. Daniel took her hand without hesitation, his grip firm, his eyes steady. And I choose you. Together, they raised their joined hands high, a symbol brighter than any crown. The chamber erupted not in rage, but in a roar of voices, some in anger, many in support, but none in silence. The bond was no longer hidden, it was carved into history. In that moment, the human soldier and the scarred princess rewrote the legend, no longer a story of curses, but of courage, no longer a tale of shame, but of survival. The elder noble dropped his staff, defeated, the old order shattered, the council divided. But the people had seen the truth, and the truth could not be unseen. Daniel leaned close, his voice soft, meant only for her. We just changed everything. The princess smiled, tears mixing with firelight. Yes, Daniel, together. And as the halls of power shook with the birth of a new age, one truth burned brighter than all. Sometimes it takes one human heart to break 1,000 alien chains.